What's going on? Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I am streaming horizontally today on YouTube. Hopefully that helps with the. What's up, souls? What's up? Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Welcome. Happy Saturday night. What's going down, everybody? Welcome, you guys. Hope everyone's having a great Saturday night. Welcome, Don. Welcome, Art. Man, it's so hard to read all those little names. Welcome, you guys. How you doing, Susa, Susa, Matt? Welcome, you guys. Welcome to everybody joining. I hope everyone's having a good Saturday night. Thank you so much for dropping in. I hope you'll stick around a bit. This is a crucial topic that I want to get into and that I'm excited to get into. I hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to my YouTube peeps. Welcome, you guys. Hey, YouTube, let me know if you like the new horizontal thing I have going. Hey, Yolanda, good to see you. Let me know. I think it's better than the other way. That was all crooked, if you remember last week. Anyway, I hope everyone's doing well, you guys. I wanted to, man, my title's probably not very alluring, huh? Healing the toxic shame that binds you. What does that even mean? Some of you may have heard that before because it is a book. It's the title of a book written by a man, hey Kanyo, good to see you, named John Bradshaw, right? And John Bradshaw was an incredible human being, one of the first people who I encountered on my healing journey. And he wrote 3 books, maybe 4, but one is called The Family, and one is called Homecoming. Now, aloha. Now, both these books shocked me when I read them because I was in a bit of what's called the parental paradox. In other words, I had no idea. Happy Saturday night, Karen. Good to see you. I had no idea that, what a functional family actually was. And the truth is, most of us don't come from a functional family. Let's be real here, you know. The question is, how well did we make it out, you know? And you can measure that by how much you are succeeding, both in the accomplishment of your goals and also in your relationships. Because everything that happened to us in our childhood is going to make its way out in our relationships, whether it's your relationship with work, whether it's your relationship with money, with your spouse, with your girlfriend, with your lover, whoever. That is exactly the only. You remember that book, Katie? I think that's Katie. It's either Katie or Katem. So these books rocked my world because the family breaks down what a functional family actually should look like, which can be shocking if you were raised in a completely dysfunctional family. Very shocking. Like catatonic shocking, you know? Like speechless shocking. Like, how am I going to go on knowing how fucked up I was? Like that kind of shocking. But I had never come across any template, any idea. I had no idea. I thought I was from a perfectly functional family. You know, I'm from an Italian-American family. I have both my parents. You know, they provided for me. You know, they said I was terrible to raise because I was so bad, and that's what I believed. You know, I always tell this story. It's because it's hilarious. You know, my dad got a chance to watch my kids for a few days when I moved to Georgia, and when he flew back with them, you know, they were about 9 and 12 at the time. Wait, yeah, like 8 and 10, something like that. And I was like, you know, the foundation is laid. We can do this. They'll be all right for a few days. They should be fine, right? My dad brought my kids back. You know what he said to me? He goes, "Hey man, you really got lucky. Kids are really good." And I was like, yeah, I got super lucky. Yeah. You understand the joke, right? It's funny, when it comes to pets, we're all very clear. There are no bad pets. There are only bad pet owners. But when it comes to children, we're like fucking bad seeds. No one wants to take responsibility, right? But the truth is, there's no difference. there's a direct correlation between the amount of trouble both a kid gets in and amount of trouble he is having at home and everywhere else. And what happens, my friends, is, if you're experiencing trouble in your relationships right now, whatever they may be, whether it's work, let me see, wow, it's so hard for some folks to give compliments. Oh, I missed something, I guess, Karen. Yeah, it is, whatever it may be, I can guarantee you that it is manifesting from a place of arrested development, of childhood trauma, of unmet needs. Because when you act out, when you do something that you know absolutely without a doubt that you are going to feel like shit about afterwards, you're going to feel ashamed, you're going to feel guilty. People are going to get hurt if you proceed, and you do it anyway, you're acting out. Who else acts out? Who do we apply that term to? We apply that term to children. Children act out, right? But guess what? So do adults all the time. Adult children. That's where that term comes from, right? Your dad could have said, "Hey, you're doing great because your kids are amazing." Yeah, I know, Karen, but he could have said that. He could have said, "You're doing great because your kids are amazing," but that would have the implications of that would have been a failing on his part, which he has not been very circumspect about. Anyway, anyway, so I came up against this, right? And I had to figure out what was going on with me. So when I read what a functional family was, I immediately knew that what was going on with me, why I was, first of all, so filled with self-loathing, so, constantly berating myself, why I was dealing with so many addictions. I was in 12-step programs. I was fucking a mess, a great big hot mess who was spinning his wheels in a very real way every day of my life. And the voice in my head, the interject in my head, very much reflected what I was told growing up. And that is that I was a complete fuck up, that I was bad, that I was fucking terrible. I was trouble. I was a failure, I was a disappointment. I was reminded of that every day growing up by one parent or another, or one teacher or another, or one coach. And so I had a lot of validation to adopt that belief about myself. And then, of course, I was raised Catholic, which means I was born fucked up. I was born with original sin, right? I mean, talk about right out the gate dealing with a lot of trauma. I mean, apparently, if you're born Catholic, you need an exorcism the day you're born because you have original sin. So we are shamed from the time we're young in one way or another, or we adopt the shame based on the needs that are not met. And so you've got to understand that your emotions are energy in motion, and they must be moved. And what happens when we're kids and we don't get our needs met is we adopt certain aspects of personality to defend against that, to continue to go on, Like I adopted the belief, obviously, that I was a fuck up, that I was trouble. And I played the role really well. I still do sometimes. But I know that that's not true. I know that that was a belief system instilled in me. I believe that looking at girls and the natural biological impulses I had were sinful. And I felt tremendous guilt. I mean, I thought by the time I was 12, I thought I was going to hell. I was literally trying to negotiate with God. I swear to God. I was trying to negotiate with God how I could squeeze into heaven, even though I knew just how much I was crazy about girls, right? Because I thought I was fucked, to be quite honest. I was like, there's no way I'm getting out of this, because there's no way that I'm going to change the way I feel and look at girls. So I'm going to have to try to. I mean, St. Peter's never going to let me in. If they really know my thoughts, I'm doomed. Imagine being 12 years old and being on your hands and knees and crying and praying for salvation from your own biological impulses. That's fucking insane. That is an insult to God. We instill that kind of belief into our young people. That's ridiculous. What kind of a God programs us with such incredibly intelligent, divine technology and then would then doom us for it? I'm not going to go off into a religious tangent because I could spend hours just talking about that. But make no mistake about it. If you're raised Catholic, I'm not sure about the other Abrahamic religions. I know there's a lot of guilt involved in Judaism. I'm not as familiar with Islam. Islam seems to be the least guilty in my experience, but I have very little with it. But, you know, Catholics and Jews have one thing in common: tremendous guilt, at least a lot of Jews. And I should say this part of the world. I'm not talking about a lot of Israeli Jews, if you want to call them Jews, whatever they are, Zionists. But yeah, that being what it may. Listen, so 2 books changed my life, okay? They made me aware of how I got the way I was, okay? Fantastic. If you aren't sure if you're from a functional family, you could pretty much bet the house that you're not. But if you want to read about what a functional family looks like, there's a great book called The Family by John Bradshaw. This man, I mean, he should have been canonized a saint. He was a true saint. You know, he spent his life working with kids and figuring it all out and learning how to help people, not just inform them, but there are meditations, there are exercises in this book to help you reclaim your inner child. And if you don't think that you need to reclaim your inner child, then take a good look at your life and ask yourself, in what ways are you not speaking your truth? In what ways are you remaining silent? In what ways are you keeping yourself from your greatest expression of your humanity? Because that's what you're doing here. And if you're not seeking that out, then something is keeping you from it. And that something is almost always from our past, a limiting belief system that we have installed in our software that we didn't even ask for, that we got from a whole group of people who we grew up with, who weren't quite aware of the impact that they were having with the programs they were instilling in us, right? So there's religion, and shame comes from a lot of different places, you know. Being raised Catholic, you feel shame just for being just for being human, you know. And then you got to go to confession, say 10 Hail Marys, and then you skip out of there like, okay, I can't wait. I can just go back next week and I'll just do those 10 Hail Marys. I can commit all those sins again. Anyway, I don't really believe in sin. I don't participate in guilt and shame anymore. Okay? Because they're like big bags of bricks. Do you understand? They're not meant to be carried. Those emotions are meant to be felt and then moved on from, right? But if you keep finding yourself stuck in them, then there's a lot of work to be done. And if you don't think that there's an inner child that needs to be reclaimed, then you're missing the boat, because this is one of the fastest ways to a healing journey. You know, it helped me become aware of how I was the way I was. And these exercises in these 2 books, Homecoming especially, see, it says, reclaiming and healing your inner child, right? So there are exercises. And this is psychology. This is not woo-woo. This is not even New Age, okay? If every fucking man on this planet read these 2 books and did these 2 exercises, the fucking world would change overnight. We wouldn't have fucking people dropping bombs on children in Gaza. There would not be this incredibly inequality between the 1% and the rest of the world. It would not happen if people did this kind of work. The world would be a better place. So don't think that it's just, you know, don't excuse yourself from it and imagine that you're not affecting the consciousness of this planet, because we are co-creating the consciousness of this planet. All of us are. And so we're creating our reality. Now, the reality that you look out and see, the fucking chaos, the mayhem, the murder, that is a reflection of a lack of spiritual understanding of who and what we are. Do you understand? And we can't begin to explore that until we heal the maladaptive programming that we were installed. And so that has to begin somewhere. And I'm just sharing with you guys where it began for me, because these books changed my life. This book taught me what a functional family actually was. If you don't know, if you only have an idea, read this book. This book will inform you what a functional family is supposed to be like. And I guarantee you it will shock 99 out of 100 of you. And you'll realize, holy shit, not only was my family dysfunctional, it was enormously dysfunctional. It was incredibly dysfunctional. If you had an alcoholic in your family, if you had a divorce, if you had parents who separated, you have been traumatized. Your younger self had to adapt in ways that are affecting you right now. And if you are not aware of that, any alcoholic, rageaholic, if you dealt with that as a young child, you are dealing with that as an adult, one way or the other, or you have dealt with it and integrated and healed and are now functioning as a much greater expression of yourself. We're all doing a lot of work all the time. I like to think that. I know I am. It's a constant thing. But the question is, can you become conscious every day enough to do it? And can you begin to understand where the problems in your life may be recurring from? And that's why I wanted to share these two books with you guys. And the name of this live stream is the name of a third book, Healing the Shame That Binds You. Also a very great book. I gave mine away, or I would have it. Hey, Barbara, good to see you. Because, like I said, hey, Betty, good to see you. Shame is it can be so heavy to walk around in. I don't know how people do it. I remember how I used to do it. When you're in a cycle, and that cycle involves, whether it be an actual addiction, thank you, Betty, good to see you guys. Good to see you guys. Whether it involves an actual addiction, or whether it involves a biological, pattern of behavior that is essentially an addiction. If at the end of that tunnel, you feel like, you've fucking broken all the eggs in the house and you got to clean up, and you're constantly having to apologize to people, or people are constantly waiting for you to apologize because of what you've done, and even you're maybe in denial about that. You don't really feel like you should have to apologize because you're entitled and you're acting out. That's the child in you. We all are expressing this in one way or another. And not many people have done the work because the work can be painful. You have to take a look at what you missed out on as a kid, and you have to begin to foster that in you as an adult. And then you have to coax that little kid who is so scared and so wounded and so berated and oftentimes so abused that he is not going to come out. You're going to have to really work with him. And I did. I did all the exercises in this book, and they helped me a lot. They helped me a lot. They were part of the stairs that I climbed to be able to sit here and talk to you guys today about this. And then the next phase was, okay, so now how do I change, right? And then that is you guys know, for those of you who tune into my live streams a lot, I talk about that very, very often, how to change, how to reprogram. Because if you keep bumping up against the same things in your life, whether it be fighting with the same person, fighting with a coworker, hi Diana, whatever it is, if you're running up against it over and over again, then it's quite possible that you need to take a look at yourself in the mirror, because it's easy to blame everyone else. It's easy to forget that we are the creator, right? But we are. And you have to admit that to yourself. You have to admit that the fucked up life you've created. Hey, Honor Monkey, good to see you, my friend. You have to admit to yourself that the fucked up life that you are living in all of its chaos, is your responsibility. You created it for yourself. And look, some of my best friends are the most fucked up people. I mean, their lives are fucked up, you know. I talk to them and I check on them and I talk to them. And I don't have any sympathy for them. I mean, I maybe I do, but it's not sympathy, empathy maybe, but I don't feel bad for them. I remind them. I'm like, why don't you stop volunteering for this fucking mess you created and do something different? But they don't. They won't. They don't know how. They're so stuck in a safe routine. The ego will keep you so stuck in your routine. And people are so afraid because they're so conditioned. And we're afraid of the unknown. We're afraid to take a chance, And that's right, oh world. And what awaits on the other side of this work is a beautiful life, is a life filled with joy. And, ask yourself how much joy you've been experiencing in your life. Do you find moments every day to be grateful for the beauty and the people in your life? Because gratitude is where it's at. It is the most powerful state of being you can be in every day. If you can find a reason and a way. Moichichi's in the house. Singapore's in the house. What's up, Moichichi? Good to see you. If you can find a reason, if you can begin a gratitude practice, your whole life will change. I promise you that. Even that, if you spend 10 minutes a day, take the elevator from your mind down to your heart. Literally get in close your eyes, get in the elevator and get out of this big old brain you have, okay? And take the elevator down into your heart and breathe in and out of your heart. And ask myself, say, what do I have to be grateful for? Because there are billions of people on this planet who do not have what you have. They do not have the support, they do not have the family, they do not have the love that you have. They have nothing. And if they could step into your shoes and have 1/10, 1/100th of what you have, what you take for granted every day of your life, they would do so in a heartbeat, right? You don't want to be anyone else, right? People used to ask me, because I was an acting and filmmaker, like, well, who you want to be like? I never wanted to be like anyone else. I knew that. I wouldn't trade myself for anything. That's how I feel today. I've cultivated self-love to the wazoo. So much that I'm crazy enough to be sitting here and trying to share it with you guys and talk to you guys into it, right? Because that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to talk you into self-love. Self-love is the absolute master key, right? Gratitude and self-love. I tell everyone, a simple thing you can do. It's something that I did. I did this over the course of about 1.5 years, right? I made a list. I made a list of all the things that I was honest with myself. All the things I was doing, the way I was walking around, the attitude I had, the victim mentality that I had, thank you, Nacho. Nacho said, leave a thumbs up for the live stream. Thank you, my friend. And it was a long list, and it wasn't very pretty, but it was honest. And then I made a list over here, a shorter list of things that I wanted to embody, of ways, the person I wanted to become, who that person was, what he looked like, what he acted like. And I had this list over here, and it was ugly. It was not very, what's the word? It was the bane of my existence is what it was. So how do I get from here to here? Because I tell you what, this list is gone. All these attributes, all these personality traits, all these habits I had, they're gone. They're gone. Hey, Rain Mama, I have this list now, and I walk around as it. Almost every day. 95% of the time. Maybe 96, right? And that didn't happen for me overnight. But doesn't that sound amazing? If you could begin to embody the person that you want to be every day, slowly but surely, I guarantee you, one day you'll wake up as that person. This thing keeps, sorry, my YouTube keeps toppling, you know. But that is a simple, simple exercise you guys can do. You could make a list. Just make it, start with 5 things. Be honest with yourself. 5 things that you're doing right now that you don't want to do anymore, that are no longer the greatest expression of who you are and who you choose to be on this planet. Because God put you here for that. God didn't put you here to scratch and try and make enough money. God put you here to figure out what the greatest expression of yourself is, period. And it's hard to do that, you know, if you aren't taking care of yourself. It's really hard to do that when you're stuck in patterns of behavior that cause chaos and destruction. But one of the ways I started, because that's where I'm at right now, hi Louisa, is I made a list. I started with 5 things of who I was at the time. I was honest with myself, you know, and I made a list of 5 things that I wanted to embody. And slowly but surely I crossed off this list and I threw it away and I embodied this list. I started walking around as this list. And man, that felt good. And then I made another list and I did the same thing. And then I got rid of that list. And slowly but surely, I'm telling you, if you can become clear on who you want to be, who you want to walk around with, what you want to look like, how much money you want in your bank account, how much resources you want in your life, the kind of people you want in your life, who you want to surround yourself with. If you become clear on that, and you can start to tune into how good it's going to feel when those things appear in your life, and you can start to weed out all the things that are keeping you from it, because everything you are looking for is looking for you, my friends. Quite literally, the universe, God, source, is trying like crazy to send you everything you're looking for. And the only thing in the way of it is you. And that is the truth. It is very hard for people to swallow. It's very difficult, you know. And in the lists, what stayed true in your life? Good question, oh world. So in the lists, what stayed true in my life is, well, let's see. I haven't lost my temper in about probably 8 or 9 years. I used to have a terrible temper. I mean, I was so hot-blooded, and I adopted, you know, kind of an uncontrollable, violent streak from my father. And I have not raged or had any inclination for any violence. I've never raised a hand to my children. I've never even had the inclination. So like that's a perfect example. You know, that part of me is gone. I shut the lights off on it. I did that through meditation. I did that through closing my eyes and reprogramming my brain, not to have that other programming in it. And I keep telling people the same thing. You're not going to break a bad habit. Thank you, oh world, I appreciate that. I asked the universe, show me how good this can get. That's a great question to ask, Pam. You know, how good can it get? If you believe that everything is working out for you, if you truly believe that, this isn't one of those fake it till you make it things. If you can begin to believe, you have to start somewhere, that everything that is happening to you for your best benefit, right? If you can do that, guess what is going to happen to your reality? Your reality is always going to affect your true beliefs. And that's why fake it till you make it is good for some things, but not for this thing. Although you can begin to assimilate this programming into your thinking and replace the other thinking, the thinking that, you know, this is fucking sucks. Like this is, the victim mentality will keep you in mediocrity across the board, a mediocre feeling of joy, mediocrity in love, mediocrity in work, mediocrity in creativity. Your limiting beliefs will keep you from the greatest expression of yourself in every way. And so you have to get to the bottom of them. You have to be willing to work at them. They're not going to just go away, okay? People are like, well, okay, well, I worked on that thing and I took care of that childhood trauma thing last weekend. I'm like, yeah, sure, all right. You're the only one on the planet who's ever done that in a weekend. You know, like, no, it doesn't work like that. It took you your whole life to get conditioned the way you are. It's not going to go away overnight. You got to reprogram. And there's a shortcut to that. It's called meditation. Or you can try to find a really good hypnotist and pay him a lot of money to reprogram your ass. Personally, I use meditation. Hypnosis works. I mean, because what you're doing in meditation is you're slowing your brainwaves down long enough to reprogram them, right? You guys understand that? Amazing things do happen, you guys. Miracles do happen, and magic is real. And you are not a victim. You are not a victim. I mean, everything that has happened to you for a reason. And maybe it's hard to understand what that reason is. But if you begin to believe and know that God, Source, the universe, has always had a plan for you, has always had to cushion you, and has always cushioned you, and always been there for you in one way or another. One angel after the next has come to you when you needed it, and you know it. If you think about it long enough, I guarantee you, there has always been somebody there for you, because God has sent us nothing but angels. That is the truth. And if you search your memory, you'll know it to be true. In the times of greatest despair and distress, anytime, there's always a sign, there's always a person. And you may not be able to see their wings, but they are an angel, because they've shown up for you when you needed them most. You know, and that is something to be eternally grateful for, right? I believe that in my heart, and I experienced that, and I know that to be true, and that gives me a direct connection with God, you know, believing that, because your beliefs shape your reality. Of course they do. Your beliefs shape your experience of everything that you go through, so you have to be willing to really look at them, because beliefs are subconscious for most of us. I mean, most people on the planet are completely asleep at the wheel. They're just along for the ride. Most people on the planet think that life is about like making the most money they can and being the most successful they can in their corporate job, and then they die. What are you going to do with that when you die? Nothing. What's it worth then? All the time spent. What is that worth? What is your legacy? Right? Like I just want to be remembered as someone who helped as many people as I can. If that's my legacy, then I've lived a wonderful life, right? But you should think about what you want your legacy to be. Because we create our legacy with the actions we take every day. And I was saying this last week, I'm going to say it again. A wonderful question you could stop and ask yourself. And if you can habituate this into your life in some way, my God, your life is going to change in every way. If you can stop and ask yourself in the heat of the moment, or with whatever you're deciding to do next, is this the greatest expression of myself? Is this who I choose to be? Is this why God put me on this planet? If you can do that, if you can squeeze that question in between the time when you go off into a reaction, whether it be, you know, a state of being, a state of mind, or you set off on a path that you know is going to make you feel bad or hurt other people. If you can stop and put space between your reaction and a thought, then you can become conscious and you can become creative. And that is a far cry from last week. If you guys remember, some of you may have remembered, what I talked about at length was, you know, conscious creation and unconscious reaction. And most people live their life all day, every day, in one and this is a victim mentality, unconscious reaction. Everything is happening to me. This happened, then this happened, then he did that, then he did that. It's my ex-wife's fault. It's his fault. It's my parents' fault. It's everyone's fault but yours until you know better, right? And then you have to really look in the mirror and take responsibility for yourself. And that's another thing that's very hard to do, because most of us are very, very conditioned Like I'm from a family of blamers. I say it all the time. My family blames everything on everyone. Like, that's what I was taught. And so I used to do the same thing until I realized I was doing it. And then I was like, God, no, I have to stop. It's embarrassing. But it's hard to just stop something. You got to reprogram. That's another thing on my list I changed. I don't blame people anymore. I don't sit in traffic and yell at the other people, the other 100 cars in front of me and behind me. I don't imagine that it's their fault. I'm in a giant line with them, okay? That doesn't make any sense. You're not in traffic, you are traffic. Hello? Being human is a funny thing. We have crazy ideas. That's the ego. Wait, Mochichi from Singapore, my friend. Unfortunate things purpose to make you realize what you don't prefer. It's always about self-discovery and expansion. That is very true, Mochichi. And a lot of things that happen to us to teach us. To teach us what we prefer and what we know cannot be a part of our lives. Not anymore. And we should always be evolving. We should always be looking to see, what is the greatest expression of myself? Is this the greatest expression of myself? Is this who I choose to be? Is this what I want to be? Is this why God put me here? If you ask that question, sorry, I keep fixing it. I'm using two different stands, and my YouTube stand keeps going like this. Sorry, guys. Let me see. I probably missed some comments. Let me catch up here. Amazing things do happen. That is true. Thank you, O World, for the compliment. Congratulations to that. I asked the universe, show me how good this can get. That's a great question to ask, by the way. Show me how good this can get. Looks pretty straight from my perspective. Thanks, Nacho. Nacho said looks straight. All right, cool. We're cooking. We're cooking with gas. So, speaking of the subconscious. Hello, good evening. Good evening, Yanin. You got to be aware that your subconscious is trying to run the show all the time, okay? You got to be hyper aware of it because it will rule the day. It will win the day. The moment you relax, take it from a former addict, okay? And they tell you this when you go to your 12-step program. They're like, don't let your guard down. And like, Jesus, you have to be on guard all the time. There's a reason why 12-step programs have such a low success rate, right? And it's because that there's no reinvention. It's all a confirmation. It's an affirmation of what you were, right? But if you're trying to become someone who no longer has an addiction, then do you think it's helping to repeat the words, hi, my name is FAUST, and I'm a fucking alcoholic, or I'm a whatever. Can I have my coin? It's been a month. Woohoo. Yeah, it works for some people, and there are some things in it that are definitely divinely inspired, like trust in a higher power. But there's a lot of things wrong with, and there's a reason why the success rate is shit, because it's missing a lot of things. If you want to change the habits in your life, you can't be constantly affirming them. You have to replace them. You have to replace the belief systems. The problem is the belief systems are subconscious, and they will find a way to try to steal the wheel from you, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. Meditation will teach you to calm your nervous system and just be. That's exactly right, Pam, my friend. Meditation will turn the lights off on those programs, including addiction, including anxiety, including your fucking egoic victim mentality. Your woe is me. Woe is me. And listen, one of the things that my mantra growing up was why? Why me? Because the craziest, shittiest things happened to me. But now you ask me, and I'll tell you, I'm one of the luckiest guys I know. If you don't believe me, take me to a casino. Believe me when I tell you, I'm very, very lucky. And I can remember the times when I used to always say, why me, why me? Because I would break bones and things would fall on my, I was constantly getting hurt by random shit. Like literally breaking bones and things falling on me from places. I was one of those kids. But I realized that is the other side of this kind of luck that I have, right? some of you know what I mean. If you watch my podcast with what's my soul brothers, Arthur Curry. Arthur Curry works at a consciousness laboratory, and he does experiments on how consciousness affects physical matter, because of course it does. Hey, Tyner, good to see you. And how we can affect the outcome, physical outcomes, whether it be like, a random number generator or a slot machine or the cards in the deck. Listen, I did a short one time. This is true. This was a true experiment. This is going to blow your mind. Skeptics melt down when they read this. They're like, this is a joke. This has to be a joke. Right? It's about prayer. Now, I'm going to sum this up. Okay. I can find the exact data. I wrote it out someplace, but I'm going to sum it up for you guys. This is true. Okay. An Israeli doctor who was coming up wanted to do an experiment about prayer. And so he took all the files from an old hospital, and he took groups of people, and he said, he took the files, and the files were people who had sepsis, right? And he said he had one group of people pray for the people who had sepsis. Then he had a blind thing, and then the third group didn't pray for anyone, right? And he divided the files in 3, and that's all he told. He didn't tell the group anything else. He just told them to pray for the well-being of these people who were sick, who had sepsis. And they did. And then they looked at the results, and what they didn't tell them was that they were praying for people 30 years in the past who had sepsis, because who the fuck has sepsis anymore? They should have known. But anyway, they were praying for people who were in that hospital 30 years ago. The files were on paper. They were old. He took them out of the filing cabinet and divided them. And guess what they found? Guess what they found 30 years later? The third of the people who were prayed for had significantly greater health outcomes than the rest. They left the hospital. They walked around. Do you understand the power of your emotions and your thoughts? They're not linear. They're not just you literally can change the outcome of the past by praying in the present. Do you understand? And if you can do that, then you can change the future. Because it's all nonlinear. Consciousness is nonlinear. Your soul and spirit are nonlinear. That's a true experiment. And it blows people's mind. They can't even understand it. People 30 years in the future affected the health outcomes of sepsis patients 30 years in the past simply by honing in on them, opening their hearts to them, and praying for them. Those patients in that third of the file, they had significantly higher outcomes than the rest. They lived. Their fevers went down quicker. Across the board, their files were different. Now, how is that? How is that possible? So you got to understand how powerful you are and how possible miracles truly are. And your life will change. And you'll start to experience that belief. And you'll be like, holy shit. Magic is real. Miracles do happen. I am not this body, right? I saw this dude, I talk about him, who was struck by lightning like fucking 5 times. I saw him at the Conscious Life Expo, and I always forget his name. I got to get his name so I can get him on my podcast. This dude is a firebrand. He's like, I don't know, 85. And he said to us, he goes, he had a really thick Southern accent. He's like, every time I go to the doctors. Oh, that was like kind of a Texas accent. Let me try again. He's like, every time I go to the doctors, they ask me how the hell I'm sitting here alive. And I was like, what? He goes, they read my charts and they're like, how the hell are you still on this earth? And he's like, and I tell them, I answer the same way every time. I am not this body. That's what he said. And it's brilliant. I mean, he's right. He doesn't associate with, he doesn't identify with his body anymore. And his body is running after being struck by lightning. I don't know how you get struck by lightning more than once. Apparently his luck is greater than mine because he's like, in his 70s, and my God, does he have a lot of energy. And his story is just fucking incredible. I can never remember his name, but he's one of the first people who wrote a book after like being struck by lightning and being pronounced dead, and then being pronounced dead like 5 more times. He's one of those people. But it's true, and it's good to remember, you're not your body. You're not. When you learn, when you begin to understand and incorporate, if you've ever done any studies from the Monroe Institute. The Monroe Institute came from the Stargate program of the CIA. ESP, astral projection, remote viewing. The Monroe Institute was formed after the CIA had its funding pooled, the remote viewing program did. And I could talk about that till I'm blue in the face. That's a whole other story. But if the Monroe Institute offers programs, CDs, I'm giving away my age. What do you call them now? Digital MP3s? Yeah, they perfected it. They worked with people who taught themselves how to astral project, who taught themselves how to remote view, how to cast their consciousness out, how to see places far away, not just on this planet, other planets, not just in this time, other times. That is the power of your perception. But how do you know? Unless you realize that you are more capable of perceiving reality than you've been taught. Because we are not this body. And one of the first things you'll learn, if you ever go to the Monroe Institute, which my twin brother has twice, I need to go. I need to make an appearance there, maybe bring a camera if they'll let me. One of the first things that the gateway process will teach you, and is part of your mantra, is, I am not this body, and you're not. And you would be wise to remember that. Because when you can remember that, you can begin to separate from some of the less than, wonderful experiences you may be going through, right? Whether they be physical, mental, or emotional. It's very important. Digital courses, that's right. Thank you, Jan. I have a twin. I do, Honor Monkey. I have a twin brother, identical twin, whose fiance was tuned in. I don't know if I've kept her on this long. She's usually pretty awesome about staying on. She's amazing. She's an incredible human being. Connect to your higher consciousness, to connect to your higher being. That's a great point too, turn stance. That's the first thing. So guys, what I did was, when my life took a spiritual turn, I'd love to see him. I get it. I'm going to bring, do I have a picture of him? Not here. Over there I do, but yeah. I'll bring a picture of him next time. He looks just like me. We're identical. Sometimes his hair is longer. He had a man bun for the longest time. Then he had dreadlocks for a while. I mean, we looked a little different, because, but we were born identical. Damn, what was I saying? So, oh my God, what was I going to say? What was I about to talk about before my thoughts? Shit. What was I talking about? Anyway, we'll recap what we've spoken about thus far. Okay, the family. We talked about the challenges that we face in our life and how they are in fact directly related to the childhood trauma we experienced. And if you had parents who, that's right, the Monroe Institute. Okay, we'll be right back to it. If you had parents, who were divorced, who separated, if you were shuffled around as a child, if you were abused emotionally, physically, God forbid sexually, all of those things, you can pretend that they didn't happen. But I'm sure if that's what you've been doing, and if you look out into your life, you will see that your relationships are struggling in a lot of ways. And in all likelihood, it is because of this unresolved trauma. And there's probably an array of bad habits that come with them. At least for me, there was. And I had to replace all of them. And I did. Literally, it took me years, but I did. I kept one or two that are kind of not bad, you know? Like I'll still smoke a little bit of tobacco once in a while because, well, you know, when I go to plant ceremonies and when I hang out with people who are mystical, you know, it's organic, it's real tobacco. And there's not a lot, you know, they've learned that there's not a lot of harm in that. The harm in smoking comes from the chemicals they spray all over that laced stuff that they put in the packs. Anyway, I don't even consider that really a bad thing. Anyway, plus I'm from Pennsylvania. If you guys know anything about people from Pennsylvania, it's like coffee and cigarettes are like, I don't know, it's like the first thing that we get when we turn into teenagers. But yeah, the Monroe Institute. So what I was saying is, how incredible is it that each and every one of you has the ability, whether you realize it or not, whether you have experienced it or not, to see into the remote past, the remote future. You can connect to the future you. You absolutely can. It's a rite of passage, Otter Monkey said. That's right, it was. My God, especially if you're Italian American. You're like, you want some coffee? You know, you turn 14, you get the coffee. Yeah. Anyway, the Monroe Institute. The Monroe Institute is an offshoot of the CIA Stargate program. An amazing place, but learning not to identify so much with the body. If you're struggling with health issues, you know, this is a very great practice to adopt. I forgot where it's located, Karen. I want to say near West Virginia, maybe in the Virginias, I think. It can't be too far from Langley, where it was inspired by it, because all those people went there and stayed there afterwards. The people who worked for the CIA and the military branch of that. Great documentary called Third Eye Spies. Check it out. Third Eye Spies. It's in my highly recommended list. It's a must see. But yeah, so yeah, like why wouldn't you want to learn that? You know, why wouldn't you want to quiet the mind and realize that if you can empty the mind, guess what? Then you leave room for something to come in. Right before I did this live stream, I did a 15-minute meditation. And I just emptied my mind. And I just, you guys think that I know what I'm going to say before I step on here. And the truth is I don't. I have an idea. I have a subject. Third Eye Spies, Honor Monkey, yeah. I know what I want to convey, and I have a couple words to go on. And the rest I just allow to flow through me. And I learned that. I learned that when I learned to quiet my mind. I learned to connect with my higher self. I learned to allow that voice to come through so that I can possibly, God willing, say something that will affect you guys in a positive way. Something that you can take with you into your life. You know, the reason why I've done all the work I've done in clearing everything out is so that I can be an open channel to try to deliver something to my fellow humans to help them achieve a greater ease in their life, more joy, more love, more peace. You know, that is my only mission, and why I rant and rave every weekend with you guys. And you know, sometimes I like to talk about conspiracies because they're a big problem, I think, and part of the reason why people are suffering so much and have such mixed up ideology is because of these grand conspiracies. So I love talking about that. Thank you, Yanan. I appreciate that. Much appreciated to you guys too. Thank you so much. I don't know if you guys saw my latest. I had a podcast with Ken O'Keefe. Very, very explosive. Ken O'Keefe is very outspoken and has been about what's going on in Israel. Grateful for your message. Thank you, Pam. I'm grateful for you guys as well. I appreciate you guys so much. And let's see. Do you guys know who? He wrote the book called The Creature from Jekyll Island. He's a living legend. He's 93 and he's sharper than I am. Did you see it? Right? Oh, did you see Ken? And then R. Edward Griffin is his name. He is like if you saw his face, you'd be like, oh wait, I know that guy. Like incredible book. If you want to know about the Federal Reserve and the criminal cartel that started it and how it's essentially, part of the suffering that is going on this planet is because of these people, these families who have figured out that if they could enslave the world and put the world in debt, then it doesn't matter how much rights you have. It doesn't matter what religion you have. If you have to work 5 jobs, you don't got much time for all that, right? And that's a conspiracy, but it's true. That's what they have done. $37 trillion. Yeah, it's R. Edward Griffin, not Griffith, Griffin. And the name of the book is The Creature from Jekyll Island. I've got the book, but would love to hear from the author. You got to check it out, James. I just put it out, just last Friday. And dude, this guy, he's so charming. He's got such a great sense of humor. I just watched the podcast again. It was so good. He's incredibly sharp. He says some profound things. Stay to the end, guys. Like, we'll talk about the Federal Reserve. And you should know about the Federal Reserve because it is the bane of humanity right now. Everyone is in debt. Almost everyone's in debt, and it's because of this system. And so when you realize that, you can transcend it. Knowledge is power, right? The life liberty part was so enlightening. It was, right, Rain Mama? It was so many parts of that R. Edward Griffin. That's right, Honor Monkey. So many parts of that podcast where he just totally surprised me and said some really profound things. 93 years old, and he did a podcast for an hour and a half with me. Like a living legend. It's so cool. I mean, he wrote the book. He wrote the book on the Federal Reserve. And my twin brother bought me that book probably 10, 15 years ago. He's like, you got to read this. And I was like, read about banking? My brother was ahead of his time then. But I did read it eventually, and then I had him on. My brother didn't enjoy the podcast. He wrote me this morning and he told me. He was like, dude, I got all these great comments on my podcast. All these people are like, oh, I love this guy. It's amazing. Thank you so much. And when I sent it to my brother, he's like, oh, you got him? You got the man himself? I was like, yeah. He's like, I'll check this out when I'm playing poker later. Next morning, I get a text message. Dude, podcast was long and boring. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I wanted to stick pencil to my eyes. I couldn't watch it anymore. I was like, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for trying to watch it, bro. And I sent him a screenshot of all the messages of people saying, oh, I love this. Thank you so much. He's like, I don't give a fuck what other people think. That's my brother for you, He's working on himself. Anyway, listen, fucking Instagram's about to drop the timer on me, and I'm going to run out of time talking to you guys. But listen, if you guys like my work, you can support me on Patreon. We're trying to build a community of free-spirited, spiritual people who enjoy the truth over reality. Yeah, I know, James. He doesn't realize he's being harsh. Most of the time he is harsh, Some people don't realize when they're being, most of the time people don't realize they're being insensitive or, they're being hurtful. I think that's the case. But I have sometimes you have to be blunt. That's true too, Turn. Thank you, Betty. I'm grateful for you too. Thank you guys so much. Check out, there's my freaking timer on Instagram. I don't even know what I did wrong to get that. Anyway, there's a Patreon page. There's my podcast. If you guys aren't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe. We're trying to overcome a lot of suppression because of the discussions that we have and the things we talk about. And so, stay cool. Heat wave in California. Thank you, Honor Monkey. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Yolanda. Thank you guys to everyone who joined on both platforms. Much love to you guys. Have a great weekend. Spend it with those you love. I'm sending you guys blessings. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, YouTube. I love you guys.